Sometimes the heart feels tired, not because faith is lost, but because meaning feels distant. You may still believe, you may still pray, yet something inside quietly asks, where do I belong in God's larger plan? Many sincere followers of God feel this, especially when they love Jesus deeply and still wonder why his story feels surrounded by so many voices, so many claims, so many arguments, and so little quiet understanding. This reflection is not here to argue, not here to correct, not here to replace what you love. It is simply here to slow the heart and allow one Quranic verse to speak gently, without pressure, without comparison, without fear. The verse we are reflecting on today comes from the chapter of the family of Imran, Surah Aal-e-Imran, chapter 3, verse 33. The English meaning of the verse is, "Indeed, God chose Adam and Noah and the family of Abraham and the family of Imran over all people." This entire reflection is built on this specific Quranic verse. When this verse was revealed, the early Muslim community was not living in comfort. They were surrounded by questions from Jews, from Christians, from idol worshippers, each group carrying deep emotional attachment to their prophets, each group fearing that honoring one meant erasing another. There was anxiety in the air, fear of loss, fear of replacement, fear that God's favor was limited, that if one is chosen, another must be rejected. This verse came as a calming response, not to erase, but to restore balance. Notice how gently the verse speaks. It does not isolate one figure. It does not crown one name alone. It places Adam, Noah, Abraham, and the family of Imran together in one chosen lineage of guidance. For Christians, this matters deeply because Jesus is from the family of Imran, and the Quran does not introduce him as an interruption, but as part of a sacred continuation. The emotional condition of people at the time was fragile. Religious identity felt threatened. Truth felt like a battlefield. And God's response was not argument, it was reassurance. God reminds humanity that his choosing is not random, not political, not tribal, but purposeful. Being chosen does not mean superiority in ego, it means responsibility in guidance. Jesus in Islam is honored within this chosen family, not as a rival to others, but as a sign within God's unfolding mercy. This verse quietly removes the fear that loving Jesus places you outside God's care, or that accepting the Quran requires emotional betrayal. Instead, it invites a softer thought that God's story is larger than divisions and more generous than we imagine. The family of Imran represents purity of devotion, trust under pressure, faith carried through uncertainty. Jesus' life reflects this, a life of humility, miracles not for spectacle, but for awakening hearts. This verse does not demand agreement, it offers context. It tells us God has always been involved, always selecting hearts ready to carry light across generations. For modern listeners, this verse still speaks because many people today feel spiritually homeless, caught between labels, afraid of choosing sides. This verse does not force a side. It reminds us that God's guidance has always come through human families, human struggles, human tears. If God chose these families, it means he understands lineage, emotion, attachment, history. And if Jesus is named within this sacred chain, then reflection becomes safer, not threatening. You are allowed to love Jesus and still listen. You are allowed to question without being condemned. The Quran, in this verse, does not ask you to abandon, it asks you to recognize continuity. God's choosing is not rejection, it is assignment. And perhaps today, this verse is less about theology and more about healing. Healing the fear that faith must be defended aggressively. Healing the assumption that God divides hearts intentionally. Instead, God reminds us that He has always been guiding humanity patiently through chosen servants across time. If this verse leaves you with anything, let it be calm, not urgency, not pressure, just the quiet awareness that Jesus is not isolated in Islam. He is honored within God's chosen history, and that history still invites reflection, not fear. You are seen, you are respected, and you are safe to reflect. If you wish, next time we can reflect again, just as gently.